Hello everyone, I'm Maria Oslagi. I'm an adjunct professor at the Citadel. I teach business communications, media marketing, and marketing. I also have my own public relations company in which I offer crisis communication services. I've spent many years working with businesses on how to develop messaging in the time of crisis, and Dr. Thompson asked me to share with you a little bit of information on how to create a press statement so that it hopefully will help you as you develop yours for his class. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is before the statement, some things you want to do. Of course, you want to have your statement written out. Perhaps you want to put bullet points down if you think that's going to work best for you. Or perhaps you want to write out the statement. If that's the case, then I highly recommend that you make sure that when you deliver it that you do give very good eye contact during that press statement. You don't want to read the press statement. You want to refer to it and not just read it to your audience, because when you do that, it doesn't seem as though you're very engaged, or maybe that you're even very credible. So make sure you do that. Another thing to always be aware of when you give a press statement is that whatever you say becomes public record. And that can really come into play if you're working on a crisis in which litigation may be a result of that particular crisis. So if you are giving a statement for a situation in which there's a good chance there may be litigation attached to it, make sure that you get that press statement or those bullet points approved by a legal counsel. Because again, you don't want to say something that could hurt your company or a certain individual if that particular situation goes into litigation. Now let's move on to actually giving the press statement. When you do that, I think it's really important that you remember to keep it short and to keep it simple. You don't want to really ramble on, don't give too many details. You just want to give the most important information, the minimal information, and keep it as short as possible. I think that's really important in crisis management. Also, when you do give your press statement, I highly recommend that you begin with some sort of introduction or overview of what you're going to discuss during that particular statement. So again, those bullets that you're going to cover during that press statement. If there is a person or persons who were hurt, seriously injured, or perhaps killed in your situation or in the crisis that you're doing a press statement on, it's always important to recognize those people who are hurt, injured, or unfortunately deceased. So it's always important after your introduction to make some type of a statement that extends sympathy to the family of the deceased or to those who were hurt. So let's use an example that happened in April of 2018. You'll recall that an engine blew on a Southwest airplane and the pilots had to make an emergency landing. During that incident, a woman who was sitting next to the window where that engine blew, she was sucked out and she unfortunately died. And really, if you're doing any kind of statement in regards to a situation like that, the first thing you always want to start with is, again, remembering that particular individual and extending sympathy to that person's family or friends. That's always important. So again, going back, you do your introduction, your overview. If there was a person or persons hurt, injured, or deceased, you want to express sympathy. And then you want to move on to what the most recent information is at that particular point in time. You don't want to start then giving a history of the crisis. You want to tell your audience what the most recent news is. So, for example, let's go back to the Mother Emanuel shooting in Charleston that occurred several years ago. There were a lot of press conferences going on after the shooting and during the search for Dylann Roof. And so those officials, every time they held a press conference, they always gave the most recent information or the newest information first, and that is we have a shooting. And then the next one might be, we know we have 9 deceased people in the church. And then the next press conference may be, we are starting a manhunt. And then the next press conference may be, we have video of the man who is allegedly went into that church and shot those 9 people. So again, you always start that press statement with the most recent information first. Once you deliver that information, then you can always go back and give your viewer or the audience some background as to what happened. But again, you want to give that most recent information first. If the crisis is fluid, so let's go back to that Mother Emanuel example. That was a very fluid situation because the shooting occurred, and then there was the manhunt for the shooter, and then his arrest, and so on and so forth. And so during that time, if it is a fluid situation, you want to end your press statement by giving an update or giving a time or day or whatever it is when that next press statement will be given by the officials. So you might want to end your press conference saying, we continue to monitor this situation and we will give you another update in 3 hours. Or if it's not so fluid, maybe you want to say we will give another update in the next week. Whatever that situation is. So again, always giving that audience an idea of when another update is going to occur. And then, of course, if it's not a fluid situation and you are asking people for more information or want people to go somewhere for information and provide that information for them, then you may want to refer them either to an online source. It could be a website, it could be a blog, or perhaps a social media page that you can refer folks to. So again, in summary, in any kind of press statement, you want to make sure you start with some type of an introduction or overview of what you're going to talk about. If people are involved, making sure that you recognize those people, and in some cases, you extend sympathy towards those people or their families. You give the most recent news, and then you summarize it by either telling people when the next press statement will be given, or really giving them some online resources that you can go to regarding this particular crisis. So hopefully you found this helpful. As you are developing your press statement, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. More than happy to communicate with you via email. You can reach me via email at oslogim1@citadel.edu, and I will try my best to get back with you within 24 hours. So again, I'm Maria Osloggy. I really appreciate spending this time with you, and I wish you the best of luck on this assignment.